if you try and, keep your risk minimal, you're not going to be able to achieve your goals really, because the rates of return are going to be very low. And the other thing I want to talk about here is that, seen a couple of videos, where they talk about like income minus expenditures you're saving, and that is not the right way to look at it. And income minus saving should be your expenditure, and that is a better way of looking at it. Uh, Here, let me tell you from my personal experience, actually. Uh, Saving, the way we are culturally brought up, etc., in Asia and South Asia, savings becomes a big goal for us. But we must remember that wealth is never really created by huge savings. Wealth is always created by taking on debt and leverage intelligently. Okay, you must not shun debt and leverage. Just, leverage is not a bad word. You must take on debt. But if you take on debt to go for a holiday, that's not the right way to take on debt. Okay, you must take on debt to invest in your business. You must take on debt to invest in assets. Then it is the right use of debt. And here, let me add one thing that we may or may not believe this. Up to 2008, when debt in America became a dirty word, most Americans died in debt. Most Americans died in debt. And most Americans live very well because the rest of the world is funding them. That is why Americans live so well, although they die in debt. Indians or Asians, we would save a lot of money, and we are actually funding the Americans. I mean, I don't want to go into details of this, but we are like shopkeepers who are giving Americans debt to buy from us. And they are living comfortably while we actually keep saving, keep saving, keep saving. And, we are actually funding the lifestyle of the Americans. The role of the dollar in all this, I would like to actually talk about the dollar in greater detail, is really very prominent. I mean, it is because of the dollar, it is because of the way we handle our currency in India. That is why we are destined to be actually poor. We are destined not to create wealth, actually, the way we go about things. So debt is not a bad word. I'm not saying you take on debt to go on a holiday or even to buy a car, for example, because a car is a depreciating asset. But if you take on debt to buy a house or a second property, that would be intelligent use of debt. And provided you can finance your debt, you will probably create an asset which will give you capital gains in future. It is like buying, borrowing to buy a ship. What ship owners do. All of them don't have the cash to buy a ship. So they borrow to buy a ship. The ship is going to give them returns. And as long as you can finance your debt, that is the way to go, actually. Because just with your see, let's be practical. Just with our income, we are not going to be able to save enough to really create wealth. Okay? We are never going to be able to save enough to really create wealth. You have to take on debt, but you have to take on debt intelligently. That is the basic thing. So you must define your goals. You must define your risk. You must be very clear what you want, how much you can save. Savings are not really going to get you wealthy. Okay, you will be comfortable, but you never be really wealthy. So be practical about debt. Don't be scared to take on debt. Okay, so that's the first thing. The investment gamut, ways to make your money work for you. Because like, Warren Buffett or someone's drilled into my head that if you cannot make your money work for you while you are sleeping, you're going to be working for the rest of your life for money. So that is the primary premise of making investments and making your money work for you. And that, believe me, is the only way to actually, get really stinking rich, as they call it. Okay. So what are the ways, or what are the investments that you can make? where your money is going to work for you. You have financial instruments. Under financial instruments, you have a whole lot of them, including, company fixed deposits, U.S. treasuries, government bonds. So you name it. I mean, these are all financial instruments where you can invest. We'll talk about them a bit later. But here, just to give you an idea of where you can put your money to work. In equity and currency, I put equity and currency together, but actually in this list, if I go by the order of importance, currency should be on the top. Please remember, currency is at the root of all markets, and you cannot actually ignore currency, especially the dollar. And this is where, I will talk a bit about the dollar and the unfair advantage. See, what has happened, what America has really done is that they made the dollar the reserve currency. They've removed, earlier, most countries could not print currency unless they had gold to back up that currency. Now, what has happened is around 1971, Nixon, he removed the gold standard. He did not, he could, kind of print as much money as he wants without having the gold to back it up. And all commodities, especially oil, etc., are quoted in dollars. They're quoted in dollars. So whether you like it or not, the entire world has to deal with dollars. And this gives America a big unfair. The reason why we're financing Americans is because of the simple fact that the dollar is the reserve currency of the world. This gives them an unfair trade advantage. There is nothing we can do about it. Whichever country has tried to actually barge in onto the reserve currency, US has made sure that they get into plenty of financial trouble. It happened with the euro in 2008, 2009. Immediately after the financial crisis, the Americans made sure, because at that time there was a lot of talk that dollar is a Ponzi scheme and the way to go is to invest in the euro. And that is the point of time where Europe was actually sent downhill so fast that even they did not see it coming. Now, the other possibility of a reserve currency is going to come from the Chinese yuan. Okay, Chinese yuan is a big contender for the reserve currency. The difference between Europe and the Chinese yuan is that China has some amount of military firepower to back it up. And so maybe the Americans may not succeed in scuttling the yuan the way they can. Already you can see that Iran and China have signed a deal for oil where they are going to trade in yuan. And the fact that all commodities are traded in dollars really gives the Americans a very, very big advantage over the rest of the world. And whichever way you look at it, never forget the dollar, never forget what is happening on the dollar. I will be going over so many things that you need to keep an eye on. The first thing you need to keep an eye on is the value of the dollar, the exchange rate of the dollar. See, because what happens is rupee keeps depreciating against the dollar. Even when the government issues masala bonds, they actually calculate the rate of return taking into account that the rupee is going to depreciate by a certain amount. And this depreciation actually causes a tax on the local population in India. And the way the exchange rate is handled, the way the price of oil is handled, is actually a big reason why India remains an emerging market, although it is the third biggest economy. It will not emerge into a big economy until we sort out this issue of the value of the rupee. If we keep depreciating it, we are never going to get there. Now, but this happens to be my personal view on the, in fact, okay, let me point out here, I used to keep cash in dollars and pounds, like you may say under the mattress or whatever, at home. Till the point of time, what happened was I got hit very badly on the pound because they changed the notes, actually. And even in dollars, there's something called Big Benjamin and Small Benjamin. I don't know which one is the latest now. But unless you are very careful, they change the currency, and sometimes you will not. Sometimes the note you have may only be accepted in the country of printing. That is, it may only be accepted in UK or US. If you go to a money changer in Hong Kong, he may not accept the dollar, or he may not accept the pound, but he will give you a very depreciated rate actually. So currency is actually right on top. Please never forget currency. And you will notice also in India, when the markets are falling, it is quite likely that the rupee is depreciating at that point of time. The big correlation. I'll talk about correlations a bit later on, but you must never forget the correlation between the dollar and markets, whether it is the currency market, whether it is gold, whether it is commodities, whether it is oil. Never forget the correlation, because the dollar is the basic of all the markets, right? So, right, equity and currency is something you could invest in. Commodities, here I am excluding gold and precious metals, but including oil. But you must remember, all these are commodities, even gold, silver, diamonds, all these are commodities. But they are put separately for the simple reason that they also act as reserve, especially gold. It acts as a reserve thing. A lot of central banks, they hold gold as reserve. Silver got a lot of industrial use. The reason diamonds are important, please remember, cash is very difficult if you want to transfer a large amount of cash, especially illegally. The best way probably to do it is diamonds. They are so small that you can hide it on yourself. You can take it in your baggage. You can do, and no one will check you. Instead of carrying suitcases of cash, diamonds is the best way to transfer money. Acceptable and the best way to transfer money. Bitcoin, I can talk a lot about Bitcoin when I talk about price and value. Bitcoin is the current, what do you call, blue-eyed boy, or the current fad. But I have reservations about Bitcoin, and we will talk about it when we come to price and value. Because all assets must have two components. They have a price and they have a value. Where you cannot put a value to it, actually, it becomes very difficult to, actually accept that as a good asset, if you cannot put a value to it, right? So then we come to real estate and we come to art. These are other things. And when we are talking about real estate, please remember, although the house you live in may be part of your net worth, but it is not really a financial asset, in the sense that I cannot, sell my house and encash it. Please remember, the main thing about all these assets is the liquidity of the assets. Unless the asset is liquid, the asset has no real function or no real value. Cash is king. Please remember, a lot of business. I don't know whether you know this guy called Kirit Shah. He's the owner of Great Circle Shipping, Bangkok-based company, bulk carrier company. Now, Kirit Shah would always keep you at least $15 to $20 million as cash to buy ships which are under distress, because he was getting a good price for the vessels. So if you can come up with cash rapidly, you sometimes get a good price on an asset. And please remember, cash is king, and all these assets have a value if only they can be converted to cash easily and quickly. And that is the main problem with things like real estate and art. You cannot sell your house immediately and convert it into cash. If I need some 7 lakhs tomorrow morning or 8 lakhs tomorrow morning, I cannot sell my house and get it. But I could sell shares and get it. I could sell my bonds and get it. I could sell gold and get it. These are easily encashable. One of the biggest problems with real estate, although the rates of return on real estate are also good, the problem always has been encashing real estate. Unless you're willing to make a distress sale and sell it at a price lower than its market value, you're not going to be able to encash it very, very easily. So liquidity, any asset, you buy, you must always have at the back of your mind liquid. Can I sell it today and convert it to cash? Because at end of the day, it is all about cash. It is all about money. Till we have enough digital money, or till we accept enough other means of payment, cash is going to be king. And never forget currency. Currency markets are bigger markets than any other markets that are listed here, other than, of course, treasury, US treasury bond markets. They are the biggest. And after that, next in line is the currency market. See, all governments hold dollars as reserve currency, cash, dollars, and US government bonds as reserve currency. So that is why US will always have an upper hand in any financial dealings with the rest of the world. Because no one's going to accept a rupee, or no one's yet accepting the yuan, not even the yen and the euro, right? So, right. Now we come to a topic which is slightly, away from money management, but which is important if you're looking at yourself and, your own money, you're managing your own money. Insurance is important. First thing is, do you need it? Now, let me answer that very simply. Unless you have reason to believe you have dependents on you, and you are the only, earning member, you want to preserve their lifestyle, you have taken a loan. Suppose I've taken a housing loan. I was talking about debt to actually, build up wealth. Now I take a loan and buy a second house. I need to cover that loan in case anything happens to me. So please remember the purpose of insurance. See, I have kept it out of the gamut of investment. Please, the basic thing you must remember about insurance is that insurance is not an investment, never treated as an investment. I know a guy called Gaurav Bhatia, who is an LIC agent, whose only job is to actually, I am sorry to use this word, is to con seafarers and marine engineers and marine folks into investing in LIC as an investment. He's selling them tremendous amounts of investment, tremendous amounts of insurance, which they don't actually need, as an investment. And never treat insurance as an investment. Insurance is not an investment. The purpose of insurance is to insure risk. Treat it like that. If you have risk, if you've taken a loan, if you want your family to, be looked after later, etc., you need insurance. And if you need insurance, you must buy term insurance. Never buy this insurance which is called ULIP, which is an investment packaged as an insurance. It is not. You must buy pure insurance. You must buy pure term, what is called a term plan. That is the kind of plan you must buy, where only the risk is insured. You pay only, say, for example, mortality charges. There are no other charges, where the insurance company is actually investing for you and you will get back some money. Whatever you pay as premium in a term insurance plan is going to be lost. But that is a better way to insure than to actually try and get some returns and invest. Because if you take any insurance, any of the ULIP plans, they give you returns lower than fixed deposit returns. So never get conned into taking a ULIP insurance. I may mention here that one of our batchmates is just going through a torrid time with ICICI Prudential, because he bought 3 or 4 ULIPs with maximum, really huge premiums, and he does not know now whether to continue with the premium or discontinue. And I have advised him to discontinue whatever happens, because it is better to invest your money pure investment. Make an investment. If you need insurance, buy an insurance. The purpose of insurance is not an investment. You must be very, very clear on this. Never buy insurance as an investment. Buy insurance because you need the protection, and pay only for the protection. Don't pay for it as an investment. That is the biggest mistake. See, let me tell you what happens in investment. To get bigger returns, what the insurance companies are doing, if you buy a ULIP, is they are investing in the stock market. Now, if your policy or the units had come up for encashment in March 2020, when the market had crashed by 50%, you would have got pittance, or you wouldn't have even have got the money you paid back when you actually encashed your units. So never think of insurance as a investment, and never buy a ULIP. Never buy a ULIP. Okay, medical insurance, 100% yes. Unless you have your company insuring, and even if you have your company insuring you, uh, at the right age, if you buy medical, not at age 60, no one's going to give it to you. Even if your medical reports are accurate, they will try and avoid giving it to you. But you must buy a medical around, say, when you're 35, 40, and that is when you must buy insurance, medical insurance. Okay. Do you insure yourself to save tax? This is the other mistake people make. To save tax, never buy an insurance policy. Just because you're getting that 80 cc deduction, please don't buy insurance. The better way to save tax, there is something called ELSS and there is something called MPS now. You buy either of these two instruments, you save the same amount of tax, but you will not get saddled with an unnecessary insurance policy which you do not actually need. See, please, if you need insurance, again, I will repeat, I know I'm repeating myself many times, but please remember, if you need insurance, please buy the insurance. Don't buy it for any other reason. Don't buy it for any other reason. Okay. So now coming to the financial options which are available, because that is going to be my focus. Actually, what are the financial instruments that you can invest in, and what are the kind of returns that you can expect? That is generally because people I know, I mean, a lot of us are talk about the stock market, but that is not the only option available. So basically, financial options available get divided into parts. One is the low risk part where your returns are lower, expected returns are much lower, and the other is the high risk part where your returns are higher, but your risk is obviously going to be higher. There is a chance that you may lose your money also. No one can guarantee. And just by the way, when I say low risk, it does not mean that it is devoid of all risk. I don't know how many of you will remember a policy called Unit 64. And I can tell you from personal experience, my parents lost a lot of money, although it was a quasi. See, the problem was it was not completely government backed. It was kind of government backed, but they lost a lot of money because government actually had to wind down that scheme. And the reason they had to wind down that scheme was because they were giving returns which are much higher than than they could earn in the market. So obviously you can't give the investors the return that is promised. A scheme like that nowadays is that Prime Minister's Vyaj Vayu Yojana or something it is called, where you are promised 10,000 rupees as income every month, and the rate of return that you on that scheme was actually 8.5% tax free. And no, that was tax, sorry, but they brought it down. Anyway, so government schemes are not completely devoid of risk. Not completely devoid of risk. There is some risk. See, even if you have fixed deposits in banks, example, even if it is a PSU bank, you may think it is guaranteed by the government. The only amount that is guaranteed by the government is up to 5 lakhs. Anything excess of 5 lakhs, you lose. You can talk to a whole lot of people who have lost money when banks are closed, including some banks in UP and all which are closed. So you don't get all your money, even if you kept a lot of money in your banks. Don't think it is completely zero risk. There's no such thing as zero risk. So the risk is lower or the risk is higher, right? So that is the thing. And a high risk, generally equity, currency related. In these money market instruments, you have the actual asset and you have derivatives. You have futures and derivatives which don't have a value by themselves. They derive their value from the basic asset. I am not sure if I can explain this here in the time I have, but these are all high risk instruments, and the returns obviously are much higher, right? So what are the kind of returns, or how do you distribute your wealth among these instruments? One thumb rule that was said or that is used is 100 minus your age you put into high risk assets, because you can afford to lose money. Okay, so this is one way of allocating your assets, which is quite popular. So at 60, I would have to have only 40% of my assets in high risk instruments. But actually speaking, I have much more than 40 even at the moment. But this is your allocation when you are making fresh allocations. This is not the uh, this is not the present allocation, is what I would like to clarify. See, if Ian is making the allocation and he's only 30, then 70% of his money he should be putting in a high risk instrument where the rate of return is going to be higher. So that is one way of allocating, and it's quite a good way. It stood the test of time. And in fact, you could even go higher if you don't have any liabilities. If you don't have any loans that you need to repay, you don't have dependent parents or dependent children, you could in fact go to 80% or even 85% into high risk assets. Okay, because okay, you're risking more money, but you are probably going to create more wealth, hopefully, if you do it the right way. Expected returns on low risk instruments are generally in the region of 6%. This I'm talking about India. Okay, 5.5 to 6% is what you may get. Sorry, if you leave your money in the bank account, you're getting only 3%. And believe me, even at 6%, this is not going to be enough to match inflation, because inflation is the thing that eats up into your money. And even at 6%, you are not keeping pace with inflation. Uh, Outside in Japan and America, the rates have fallen as low as 1%, 2% for a 10-year instrument. But their inflation is non-existent. So we cannot strictly compare rates of return in America, Japan, other places with rates of return in India. Okay, exception in India was instruments like the PPF and uh, say national savings certificates issued by the post office, etc. Now, the government had tried to reduce the rates of interest. If you see that WhatsApp message sometime back, government tried to reduce the rates of interest on these instruments and took them back immediately. But you can only invest 1,50,000 in say PPF. You can't invest more than that. So even if you're getting a higher rate of interest, you can, in a year, you can only invest 1,50,000 there. You can't invest more than that. But that gives you the best rate of returns adjusted for taxes. Adjusted for taxes. Expected rate of returns from high risk instruments are about 15%, and these are considered excellent long-term returns. Now here, let me tell you about doubling your money. Chandu had pointed out that 72 divided by the rate of interest is the number of years it takes to double your money. And the bellwether for this earlier, when I was young, say I was in DMET, etc., and my parents were doing the investing part of it, was always the NSE certificates where you could double your money in 5 years. So if you could double your money in 5 years, 72 divided by 5, that gives you a rate of interest almost close to 13-14%. And which is the rate of interest or rate of doubling or your expected returns, that is what you should be aiming for. In the long term, even assets like equity markets, assets like real estate, they give you no more than 15% returns. And these are considered excellent returns. I mean, I know we are talking about doubling your money between March last year and March this year. These are exceptional things, and not all stocks have doubled your money. So don't go by these exceptional rate of return. And the other thing I must point out here, especially if you are interested in the stock market, is that for 70% of the time, stocks do nothing. They don't move. You will find that the price is remaining static. It does not move. And it is only 30% of the time when they suddenly run. Now, if you catch that particular stock at the time when it is going to start its run, then your rate of returns can be fantastic. And that is what everyone in the market is trying to do. Catch the stock the moment it begins its run. Like at the moment, I can give you an example of a stock like that. It is even Bitcoin, for example. If you bought Bitcoin last year, March, you would have doubled your money, more than actually two and a half times. Yeah, 250% returns you would have got by this year, March. So, but if you take a thing like gold, last time gold peaked was in 2008, 2009, when it crossed about $18,000. And it peaked again only after 10 years. So commodities, at the moment, I will talk about commodities a bit later. They are supposed to be starting a 12-year or a 10-year bull run. But please remember, no one can guarantee this. Always remember, no one can guarantee it. It may happen, it may not happen. Everyone is comparing the present period now to the period of 2003, 2004 to 2008, where the last super cycle of a commodity market was. And all commodity stocks did well. Inflation was very high. Surprisingly, all assets. I will talk about that when I come to the correlation between the assets, how the assets get correlated. And that was a very typical period where all the assets prices were rising. Normally, they have a negative correlation, but 2004 to 2008 was a period where all asset prices rose, irrespective of the asset you bought. Whether it was oil, whether it was gold, whether it was dollar, whether it was iron ore, all assets rose. Now, this period is being compared to that period, but can anyone guarantee it? We don't know. So be cautious. It may turn out to be a golden period for commodities. And when I say commodities, it includes oil and gold. So it may turn out to be a real great period for oil and gold. But no one can, iron shares already rising like hell. And if you are think you're investing, maybe wait for a bit till they come down a bit. Don't just rush in. Okay, so I think I've completed. Before I start this talk on stock markets now, so far, any questions on what I've covered so far? Or should I just continue?
Do you manage funds for others?
No, I've thought of doing it many times. But the thought that things can go wrong has kept me away from it.
Okay. Just kidding.
Because it's okay. If I lose my money, I can face myself in the mirror. If I lose I know some batchmates, I don't want to name them, who had given money to each other for managing, and then things went wrong. So actually, I wouldn't want to do it, but I have considered it many times. I mean, that I should actually get into this. It's a hobby, and I would like to keep it as a hobby.
Mallu, you're saying 15% return. You are calling that a high return or
Yeah,
I mean,
that is the
high?
return on the risky asset. See, long-term return on equity markets, if you take over a long
It should be
period,
more than that.
it is no more than 15%. See, listen, what the thing is, in the market, you cannot always buy the share which is going to run. Say, pharma did very well last year, but from the beginning of this year, it has been giving you negative returns. So if you're holding pharma stocks which you bought last year, and you got say 70-80% returns that time, this year from January to April, your returns have been negative. So if you take a larger, and you take all mutual funds, you take any mutual fund, see the return over 5 years or 7 years. If you are getting 15%, you are damn lucky. Take any professional mutual fund manager, pull out any, record of a mutual fund, and you see I could do it. I wish I'd kept it. You will see that you will never get more than 17, 18, 17, 18% would be great. People would freak out. This is long term I'm talking. I'm not talking about, see, individual stock that you buy today. And that is what, in the past year, I've been making a mistake. Although, I've been cashing out whenever I get 15%. And as a result, I missed a much larger move on stocks, say like ONGC or even NTPC. I missed a much larger move. Tata Elxsi. Oh, that was a brilliant stock I had picked up. But I missed larger moves because I cashed out early.
You're looking
But
at
I have no regrets on that.
You're looking at 15% annual.
See, because what happens is, let me explain the logic that most people who operate on stock exchange work on, is that if you buy 10 stocks, not all of them are going to turn out the way you expected them to turn out. Even if 5 or 6 of them turn out and give you phenomenal results, they make up for the other 4 that did not turn out the way you wanted them to turn out. And so the average long-term returns that you get are 15%. But believe me, that is enough to compound your money. Okay, I'll give you a personal example. My father expired in 1985. Okay, he had stocks, whatever stocks he had, those times it was all paper stocks. They were worth, I think, I remember that time, all put together 1 lakh. And he had invested in a house. He bought a new house in Goregaon, which was worth 2 lakhs, 2 lakh 10,000. This is what he had paid for the house in Goregaon. In 1985, it was a loan from a company, etc., etc. Okay, forget all that. Now, today, in 2020, the house in Goregaon is worth 1 crore 85,000, maybe. His portfolio, which was 1 lakh at that point of time, which I kept intact, largely intact. In fact, that is how I got interest in shares. I did not do anything to that portfolio. I just kept it as it is. There are companies which have gone shut, which are not even traded now. But the value of that portfolio today is about 5.5 crores.
Wow. Half the amount and double the value.
No, what trouble? Hundreds of, I'm talking about 85 35 years.
No,
it has gone from 1 lakh to 5.5 crores. I mean, that is the value of compounding.
No, not that way. I meant the investment house was 2 and this was 1.
Right.
And now the value is double the amount value of your house compared to that. Half the value invested is double the value in real estate. That's what I meant.
More than double.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but the thing is, the problem is, see, real estate has had a bad patch for the last 10 years. The values have really not gone. And if you ask my personal opinion now, best time to buy, if you are got money spare, best time to buy real estate, not commercial. I don't know because how commercial is going to work out, but residential, best time to buy. Your EMIs are so low, you're getting money for free actually. And what is going to happen now is that people who have made money on the stock market are going to be looking to invest in real estate. Always a stock market boom is followed by a real estate boom. It happened in 2008, 2004 to 2008. It's going to happen again now. The stock
Amanyu,
market
one more
boom is
thing, yeah.
always generally followed by a real estate boom.
This is question answer time, not for you to talk so much.
Sorry?
This is question answer time. We are supposed to ask question and you're supposed to answer, not talk so much.
Okay, sorry.
So,
Any other questions anybody has?
Yes, they normally say that in a stock market, barely 2 to 5% of the people who invest make money. The rest of them, 95, actually lose money. And
Yeah. I'll come to that. I'll come to that part of it, BK. When I'm covering the stock markets now.
Sorry.
Why?
So, I mean, such a high percentage people actually lose money that puts you off. Yeah, that you really must know something to get inside. Or are we the guys who are going to be the guinea pigs who are going to,
we are.
fund your climb?
You're right. I'm covering that. Retail investors are generally the guinea pigs. We are the fodder. And unless you are very, very careful, see, the markets are moved only by institutions and big money. You and me cannot. I buy 100 shares of Tata Steel today, I cannot move the market. The price is not even going to move 1 paisa because I bought 100 shares. So to move the market, and you see that sometimes I will show you examples. Shares move by 45 bucks, 50 bucks in a day. No, forget day, in half an hour. And that kind of movement cannot come by retail investors. See, the dream of our retail investors to capture that moment, but we cannot actually move the markets.
Okay, sure.
Any other questions, please?
I'll come to that.
Roger.
Any other questions? Anybody?
ज्ञान आने दो और ज्ञान.
Okay, chaliye, let's move
No,
on.
yeah, now I'm talking about the stock markets now specifically.
Okay.
So this is where we go into some of the questions like BK asked about most of the people losing money. Okay. So stock markets basically are required because they enable companies to raise capital from investors and so that they can invest in their business. People are hesitant to give you loans if you don't have enough equity. There's something called a debt equity ratio. And, you can only borrow if your debt equity ratio is too high. You're going to do great in a boom. But when the bust comes, you're going to do very, very badly. And so that is where your stock price is also going to get hit. So people are not willing to lend to you unless you have equity. So stock markets enable, this what we call crowdfunding nowadays. Crowdfunding, stock markets are something like crowdfunding, where people invest, ordinary people like you and me can invest in the business. In India, the stock markets are regulated by SEBI. Before that, there was a capital market regulator. In spite of regulations, whether it's India, US, you have the SEC, Security Exchange Commission. In spite of that, my personal belief is that markets and prices are heavily manipulated. And you need to be very, very careful. You need to go into this with your eyes open. Because like BK was saying, 95% of people are going to end up losing money. I don't know. I don't think that should happen, but you shouldn't be losing money. Your aim should be okay, let me quote Warren Buffett. There are 2 rules when you're going into the stock market. First rule is that you should never lose money. And the second rule is don't forget the first rule. So basically not losing money should be your goal. Risk management, whenever you get into the stock market, think of risk management before you get into the market. Forget making huge sums of money. Be worried about not losing your money. Okay, because like BK has pointed out, there are enough people waiting there to strip you of your money, and retail investors are fodder. Be a fodder. So, right, and now the next thing that you must remember, and this bears, I can keep repeating this endlessly, actually. The stock market is the only place where both the buyers and sellers believe they are right. And let me give you Warren Buffett's example of a farm here. That's such an excellent example. When you finish this talk, when you're sitting quietly with a drink, please think of how Warren Buffett describes it. He describes it like a farm. And there are many reasons why, then very many nuances to this. So how he describes is that, imagine that you own a farm in a particular place. Your neighbor owns an identical farm. You have a boundary between the farm, and there is nothing to distinguish your farm from his farm. Both are equally fertile, both are equally, productive, both have the same kind of, infrastructure, etc., etc. Now, both of you guys are in the habit of coming up to the fence in the morning, just shooting the breeze, saying hi to each other, having a cup of coffee. Hi, BK, kya haal hai tere? Hi, Chandu, kya haal hai tere? Kind of stories. And they say, ha, Mallu, tere kya haal hai? And, right? And at the end of the conversation, the neighbor tells you, कि अरे बॉस मेरा फार्म खरीदना है क्या, ये प्राइस है. And if you say नहीं मेरे को नहीं खरीदना है तेरा फार्म, he says अच्छा ये प्राइस दे रहा हूं, तू अपना फार्म बेचेगा क्या? So the price is the same. You have the option of buying and selling at that price. That is the function of the stock market. So please remember the two sides. If you are buying, someone is selling. And when you are selling, someone is buying. And you're doing it at the same price. Like today I want to sell Tata Steel at 860. I go and place an order 860 and my share is sold. Someone has bought it at 860. So does he know more than me, or do I know more than him? Are we better informed? Who's taking the right? See, this is the biggest actually what you call kick I get out of the stock market. The fact that both of you all are taking the same decision. One guy, you're on opposite sides of the decision, and one of you is going to be right, or in the long term, maybe both are right also. It all depends on when you get out. See, I can tell you what to buy. In number, you can see a stock is ready to run and you want to get in. But the thing is, are you going to be getting out at the right time or not? If you are greedy, you stay too long, the price may come down like hell. You will not even get time to get out or reach the door. Because when the institution starts selling, see, like I say, prices are supposed to move on the basis of demand and supply. But the thing is, who's creating the demand and who's creating the supply? And unless you know more, I believe one thing, that I am working with incomplete information. I don't know the guy on the other side of the trade. I don't know how he is working. But I am definitely working with incomplete information because, I'm working on it based on what I read in the papers or what I see on the TV. That's not where you get your information from. To know about the company, you need to do a more detailed study. If you are really going to take, a call based on your study, right? So I take it that my information is not even I don't even get to the first eye of that information. And so whenever I'm either buying or selling, this is the first thing I pause to think about. मैं बेच रहा हूँ. And the moment I sell it, I know the price is going to rise because the guy 100% on the other side has more information. But why am I selling it? Because I made my profit and I want to get out probably. So when you are buying something, the same theory may apply, that the guy who's selling it is like you, a retail investor who has made his profit. But please remember, he's already made his 15-20% profit. The share has already run up that much. And now we are getting in okay. So then let me here talk a bit about Bitcoin. No, Bitcoin, we'll talk about there only. See, when you're buying at a particular price, it's always with the hope that you'll be able to sell it to someone else at a higher price. But based on what? Based on what? I mean, your information is totally incomplete. Most retail investors' information is going to be incomplete. So unless you're in there for a long time, You're prepared. Like my father's, I did not know what companies he had invested in. I did not know anything about the company. I just kept them intact. They're all in my mother's name, by the way, lest you get ideas. I transferred them all to my mother's name and kept them intact. I did not buy or I did not sell any of those shares. And today, some of the companies are not even traded or listed, but that does not matter. That does not matter because the entire portfolio is gone. So unless you are there, so now have I made money or haven't I made money? Very difficult. I am in the 95% or the 5%. So it all depends on how you're going to play the market. If you are going to be, if you're going to be always chasing the tops and the bottoms, then it is sometimes difficult to make money. So it all depends on the strategy you have and the discipline that you have. Discipline actually is the most important thing. Now, we come to the next important thing is the seller leaving something on the table for you, for the buyer. Like when I'm selling, I know for certain that the price is going to go up and the guy is going to make money. I am quite sure. Well, otherwise, you will find it very difficult to sell your share at a price you want to sell it at. Someone is buying it who has some information where he knows that whatever reason the share price is going to go up, it's going to be. See, it's all a question of all shares move in phases. If you buy it at the right time and wait for the rising tide, very good. If you buy it at the top and the tide is falling, then that is when you lose. And that is why stop losses, etc., become important. Your strategy, your actually, and yeah, okay. Here, let me tell you, psychology is more important. Psychology of trading and stock market investment is more important than any analysis that you do. Analysis generally leads to over-analysis and leads to paralysis. It is actually the psychology. Okay, when I say psychology, let me go talk a bit. Okay, I'll talk about the psychology again after the next slide. Okay, so but please remember this: that stock market only plays where two people are, believing that they are both right, and it may turn out that both are right. It may turn out that both are wrong, also. So, okay. So when you're investing or trading, you must always accurately calculate your costs. What are going to be your returns should always be calculated post-tax returns. Never calculate on the basis of only what returns you get. Because if I'm getting 15% returns and paying 30% tax, is that better than getting 8% returns and paying no tax? You can see the difference. And when I say better, for the risk you're going to take. For the risk that you're going to take. Okay. Please remember, 7 to 8% returns over risk-free returns are considered fantastic returns. Don't get more greedy than that. Don't get more greedy than that. You may, of course, hit a jackpot, but shares like Infosys, shares like Hindustan Lever, they're basically being jackpots. But how many of them? You can count. And for every share you count like that, I'll show you a company which is not even listed or which has gone bust and gone, not even traded. Okay. Nowadays, there are brokerages that charge only ₹20. Choose a good broker, reliable broker, because this is where you can get, what do you call, you can get cheated.
Zerodha.
Okay, because unless you have a standard broker, see, I am using HDFC Securities, let me tell you. And HDFC Securities, the transaction costs are so high that the share must really move a lot for you to make any money. Chandu was pointing out that at 0.7, because I am probably getting a lower brokerage from them, I negotiated with them, my cost turn out to be 0.5%. Which is really high. Really high. Like but I like the comfort because I don't want to go over all the, brokerage statements. I know that they will not cheat me. I hope they are not cheating me. So, because I never go over the statements. if you are choosing a broker whom you don't, who's not an established broker or a sub broker or something, you will have to go over their statements with a tooth comb to really make sure he's not overcharged you anywhere. And he's deposited all that is due to you to deposit in your account. Because some of them play tricks with you. But yes, on the other side is the transaction cost of 0.7% is really very high. And
It's not 0.7. One second.
This is two-way
0.5.
transaction cost. Sorry?
No, it's 0.5 each way. But
No, not 0.5 each way. It is total, it is 0.5 each way.
0.5 each way is brokerage, and the other 0.2 is taxes, STT.
No. Points, what you are saying, actually the cost is 0.05%.
0.5, sorry.
That works out to 0.7, and if you include the GST, other stuff, it works out to 0.7% of your transaction value, whatever is your transaction value.
True.
So, but a lot of brokerages, like there's one called Zerodha, quite reliable, I believe. The other one is called Angel Brokering. They also seem to be reliable, but don't take my word for it, please. They charge only $20 a trade, flat. So your transaction cost is really very low. Very, very low. Okay. Right. So you must be, and you must calculate your cost. You may think you're making that much money. You may not actually be making that much money. If you take away your transaction cost and your tax. Okay. But please remember, you will need to pay capital gains tax if you held the security for more than 1 year, and you would need to pay short-term tax, which is at, I think, 20% now. The long-term taxes, if you held the security for less than a year, you'll have to pay short-term tax. Right? You would also need to open a demat account. Please open the demat account in joint name, never singly. If you're doing it singly, please make a nomination. And a demat account is basically an account where your shares in electronic form get deposited or they get taken out. So, and normally the practice is all these three accounts are linked. That is your broking account, your demat account, and your bank account. They are all linked so that the money moves seamlessly from one place to the other place. And that is why you need a reliable broker. Don't trust anyone. Don't trust even me. If I tell you that I'm a broker tomorrow, please don't trust me. Because unless you have a reliable broker, you can lose a lot of money. Especially in the olden days. Nowadays is much better, electronic. But you can, the amount of manipulation and ghafla that goes on even in NSE is unbelievable. Okay, with so many watchdogs watching, it is still a big wolf's den out there. And please go into it with your eyes open. There's money to be made, but you need to keep your eyes open. Right. Now, two types of things you can do, or two ways to make money on your stock market is either you can be an investor or you can be a trader. You need to decide, and your risk profile and everything, you need to be very clear what you're going to see. Both guys make enough money. Both guys make it. But remember, retail traders are generally not successful because they trade with a limited amount of capital and they trade only in one market. If you are trading, you really need to trade across commodities. You need to trade across currencies. You need to trade across stock markets and stock markets across countries. That is true diversification. And unless you are doing that, you will not be a very successful retail trader. Okay. But this is also like, personally, this is a part of where I get my, kicks from, to make, because you are up against the best minds in the world and they are trying to take your money away from you. And I have survived against these guys, and that is why, that is where I get my kicks. I've not made a whole lot of money in trading, believe me. But I have survived. I have not lost money. And that is why, like, see, this is basically like the shipyards. You are either a new building yard or a repair yard. So you are either an investor or a trader. Both guys are going to make money. Now, very few people can combine the two. Very few people can combine the two, and the strategies for both are different. See, let me show you what happens in trading. Okay, you're a short-term trader. Let me show you what happens in trading. I want to show you from today's market only. Okay, Hindustan Zinc we'll come to later. Let me show you this chart of L&T. Okay, this is something called a future price. And if you, I don't know how clearly you can see the chart. So if you are trading, you're going to use something called technicals. And this is a technical chart. Okay, candle, I can go into how the candlesticks are made, what are the red lines, what are the blue lines. But this is not the place. I just want to show you what happens in trading. Now, consider, can I move this a bit? Okay. Now, I don't know how much you can see. Now, consider the top here yesterday, or when it opened. This is today's chart, okay? And it's a 15-minute chart. And consider this price here. Can you see my, the horizontal line I've made? 1448. Can you see that price? 1,448. Yeah. So that was the price when the share opened today morning at 9 o'clock. Okay. Now, suppose you are trading, and one lot of this L&T futures is actually 575 shares. So 575 into 1448. But your investment in this is, when you buy one lot, is going to be only 2 lakhs. You need only 2 lakhs rupees to buy this one lot of this. Now you can see what happened by, say, 11:30. The price has gone to 1385. So 1445 to 1385, that is 60 bucks into 575. In a matter of 2 hours, you've lost 30,000 rupees on an investment of 2 lakhs. That is more than 12 and a half, 13% gone. And if you're not trading accurately with your stop loss, if you can't interpret this properly, I would suggest you do not get into trading. Because trading may look easy. See, but at the same time, the guy who sold it at 1445 and bought it back again at this price has made that 30,000. So, I mean, there are always two sides. So if you are not willing, if you cannot stomach this loss of 30,000 in a matter of 3 hours, you should not get, and in any case, you should be using stop losses, and you should not have got into this trade. The moment it went below this price yesterday, you should have got out. That means you should have got out at 1430, 14, what is that price? Sorry.
31.
Yeah, you should have got out at that price, 1431. You should have made only a loss of 14 bucks and just got out, whatever happened. So unless you can do things like this, I would suggest that you do not get into trading. There is huge amounts of money to be made even in trading. In fact, probably that is the lure. There is a greater amount of money to be made in trading. Because if you're making, 30,000 bucks every 2 hours, you can imagine how much you're making a day on a capital of 2 lakhs, which is what I would expect a typical retail investor to be kind of risking. But please remember, you can't do this in one market, one share. Trading does not really work. You need to, if you need to do it well, you need to do it across assets. You need to do it across markets, because a professional trader will not even bat twice or taking the loss of 14 bucks. You just take this and move on. See, please remember, when you're trading, I'll go back to my presentation. When you are trading, it is not a question of whether you're right or wrong. You need to operate like a casino when you're trading. See, the business model of a casino works something like this. They, irrespective of how much a person, gambler wins or how much a gambler loses, their business model is very simple. They are going to make, at the end of the day or end of the year, they are only going to make 4% of whatever bets are laid, whether they are winning bets or losing bets. The casino is going to make 4% of whatever bets are made in that particular casino. That is their business model. And if you're going to trade, you need to operate like that. That you're going to make 1% of whatever bets you make. And if you do that, and if you've not lost money, you're a great trader. So you need to operate like a casino where, see, a person may win millions of dollars there. Fine, that gentleman has won, he's gone on happy. But in spite of the fact that the casino has won, that gentleman has won and the casino has lost, at the end of the year, whatever bets were made in that casino, they have made 4% of that money in spite of the losses and the wins. That is how the traders should operate, and that is what trading is all about. So if you are going to, BK, that is an answer to your question. How many people win at the slot machines? How many people win? Maybe 4% win. But the casino always makes money. Casino is making 4% of the money. So that is, you need to be very clear what is your goal, how you're going to make money. And believe me, trading is very, very hard work. It may seem simple. Array, that stock has moved, like I showed you the L&T, it moved $50 in 2 hours. A lot of stocks move like that throughout the day. And that is how retail investors get tempted into this. But that is, if you are making money that way, fine. You can do it. You need a lot of discipline, and you need to operate across markets. You need to operate like a casino. As long as you are clear, you can do it. And this is where the psychology of trading comes in. Please, can you see that fall, and can you remain stable? I mean, when it falls, and believe me, tomorrow or maybe next week, L&T is going to come back to 1445. Believe me, if you held on, you would get that price again, or you will not have made a loss. But can you, for the 10 days or 15 days where it is going to go, and you don't know how much further it's going to fall, can you retain your calm? Can you retain your calm? One of the things that you must do, actually, when you're in the stock market, is never chase a price. Never chase a price. Allow the price to come to you. You get all kinds of prices. You'll be surprised. Just when you think that the price is never going to come, you'll get it. If you remember, BK, I was telling you about BEL. And I was saying 115, 115. Last week, it was 115.85. I don't know whether you bought it, because today it was 131. This was last Friday. It was 115.85. I bought it personally at 117.5. I have not sold today, but it's there. Okay. So prices, unbelievable prices. You never chase a price. Okay. The other parts, of course, investors actually go by fundamentals, cash flows, book values, price to earnings ratios and stuff like that. Let me show you what fundamentalists go by. And that is the very interesting part about price and value, actually. If you see Hindustan Zinc, yeah, by the way, this is a site called www.screener.in. It's a free site. You can check up any company you want on this site, and you get all information. If you see at the information in the beginning, what you should look at is the market cap. The thing I wanted to point out is the dividend yield. A dividend yield of 7.17%. What does this mean? This means that actually whatever dividends the company is paying, had you bought it at 297, your return would still be 7.17%. And believe me, this return is much higher than any of the fixed deposit or bond returns that you're getting today. But the other ratios that you should look at are the return on capital employed, which is 21.8% here, and the return on equity, which is 18% here. There is another figure they used to give, but which they have removed. I don't know why. It used to be growth in compounded growth in sales. And when you are investing in a company, one of the things you should be looking for is that all these three figures, that is return on capital employed, return on equity, and the sales growth, they should all be 15, 15, 15, more than 15, 15, 15. I can show you other examples of companies which are doing well, whose, let's take Hindustan Lever. Those growth figures are very bad. But the share price is still good. But would you invest in this? I don't know. Stock P is so high. Oh, return on capital investing. No, there's something wrong here. Oh, 117%, 85%. But their sales growth are hardly 6%. So the return on equity and this ROC figures are really fantastic if they're accurate. But P is very high here. And if you see your dividend yield, it is only 1.05% here. While in a stock like Hindustan Zinc, it was 7%. So you bought that stock at 297, you would still, even if the price did not go up, you would still get a return of 7%, which is pretty decent. So this is what you should look at. You have chart sites like this. And the other figure here you should look at, or something here you should look at, is this figure of investors. How much are promoters owning of that company? How much are financial institutions, foreign financial institutions owning? How much are domestic institutions owning? And how much is the public holding? Because this will tell you a lot about the way the stock price is going to move. If you see, domestic institutions have been increasing their holdings. Even the foreign institutions have increased their holdings while the public has been selling. Their price is bound to go up, actually speaking, in the short term at least. So this is things which fundamental analysis do. I think I've taken much more time, so maybe I should be stopping here. Yeah, but let me talk about price and value, because that is where I talk about Bitcoin. How do you price something and what is the value of something? Now, if you take something like Bitcoin, which has got a price of $54,000 today, does it have a value? Actually, if you ask me, that is one of the biggest problems with Bitcoin. It is impossible to fit a value to it. Okay, Tesla has promised that you can buy a car with Bitcoin, but there's very little else you can do with a Bitcoin. How many of you all want to buy a Tesla car, electric car? I'm not sure. But one of the prime problems with investing in an asset like Bitcoin is that very difficult to ascribe a value to it. It's got a price. It's got a price. With a price of 54,000. But tomorrow, even if it's 20,000, I mean, what is to say whether the price is correct or not? So generally, now, if you're going to invest in the markets, there are two books you should read. One of them, I think I had forwarded to BK, was Mania, Mobs and Mime. And the other one that you should read is The Wisdom of the Crowds. So there was, in the earlier days, something called a tulip mania, where the flower in Holland was ascribed fantastic values, or fantastic price, actually, not value. But what was its value actually? And the same thing is happening with Bitcoin. I personally would never invest in Bitcoin, or I can't even call it an investment. It is a blind gamble where you're buying it at a particular price, hoping that the price goes up to 70. See, the price moves are fantastic. $700 in a day. I mean, that kind of money is very luring, but so is the risk. So is the risk. And in the last time the Bitcoin had crashed, a lot of people had got hurt, including my mother's physiotherapist. So, fine. But I think I need to stop here because I've taken too much time and I need to modify my talk, I think, maybe. Okay, so I'll stop here, and if there are any questions. And
I think we can have some questions, Rajesh.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I have one question. When you say Bitcoin has price but no value,
Right.
but what do you attribute to value of something? I mean, how do you say something
so
is
that
valuable?
is what I was showing you, that the fundamental parameters that are used, by why isn't this? Oh, sorry.
Can I try to
Fundamental
answer that,
parameters
Mallu?
that are used for analyzing a company.
Right. I saw that.
Basically,
Right.
their cash flows and these ratios here, the debt equity ratios. Basically, you need to analyze their cash flows. How much money because basically, like Warren Buffett says, when you buy a share, you're basically buying a business. How much money the business is going to make for you is given by this dividend yield. Because that is what you can see. It is like a ship owner. The money is going to make every day is by the charter hire. Asset price will move or not move. It may move in his direction, not move in his direction, unknown. But what money he can expect actually is only the charter hire, which is basically, if you call it, if you take it in the terms of shares, it is your dividend yield. So dividend yield is what gives you your regular income.
Right. So, if I understand correctly, what you're saying is that a company like Hindustan Lever or any other company,
Right.
there is some activity going on which brings value to it, whereas Bitcoin is just
Which has a income. I mean,
yeah.
where income. See, why? Okay, let me touch upon a different thing. Now, a doctor who say earning, who was say doing surgery and earning money, he invests in the stock market. Now he cannot. Why? So then, can he give up his surgery? No, because surgery is where the regular income is going to come from. Stock market may or may not give you money.
Right.
So these are the parameters of company which what is known as value investing, what Warren Buffett has pioneers or what he champions is that you look at a company this way and you then see its price and see that is why everyone looks at this stock PE ratio, price to the earnings value.
Correct. So that you go back to the fundamentals of the company itself. Basically.
Right.
How it is. There's a question Yogita has put up: should Bitcoin be treated as a currency rather than a stock?
No, Bitcoin is nothing actually. It is neither it is an asset. It is an asset which institutions are buying into now. But at the end of the day, it may turn out to be like the tulip mania. Because see, what really is a Bitcoin? It is some certificate that you have this. Can you use it for going out and buying bread? So it is not currency. See, there is in China, they've started something called a digital yuan, where it is not paper currency, but it is still a yuan issued by the government of China. And it is acceptable. I mean, it goes into your account, comes out of your account. It is a paperless digital form, but that is still a currency. Bitcoin is not really an acceptable currency. And if you ask me, see, one of the biggest problems, although institutions are investing in it, etc., value has gone up so high, it is very tempting. But the thing is, governments are not going to allow it to be working as a currency. See, I understand disruption. I understand where Elon Musk is coming from. It's Tesla. He's a disruptor. He likes to disrupt and make his money. So he has announced that we will accept Bitcoin for buying cars. He can afford to lose that tomorrow. If he loses 50 Bitcoins, he's not even going to come to know it.
Mallu, just a moment.
Yeah. Boliye.
Yeah, here is a bit of difference what you're saying. If we are going in as a trader, we should have no emotion attached towards
trading,
toward what we are trading. Yes.
Right.
But now you are contradicting that because Bitcoin, I agree with what you're saying, absolutely. It's a pie in the sky. It has got some kind of a in crypto value, which may be there or nothing is there. But a true trader is looking at it. How much is he going to get while he gets in and gets out? He is not looking at the bricks and mortar of a Unilever or a company. What is the fundamentals of it?
Okay.
So from the trader point of view, I would put it this way. From a trader point of view, buy Bitcoin, make your money 15-20% and get out. But if you want to hold it like a solid, like a Unilever stock, then don't do that. Am I correct?
No, you are correct that if you want to trade in Bitcoin, do it. See, one other thing. Then, if you're talking about trading, see, trading works on historic price action. I showed you the LNT chart. This is a 15-minute chart. I can change it and I can make it say a 1-month chart, where you get over the years. Okay. Now, this is right from 2013, say, towards giving me to 2021. And if you see, the bottom here is 671, and the top here is 1802. So this is the price action, say, from for the last 7-8 years, whatever. And within this price action, using my technicals, I judge how to when I should get in, what should be my stop loss, and when I should get out. Now, if you are going to do that with Bitcoin, firstly, there is not enough history available. Secondly, the Bitcoin is so volatile that most retail traders will not have the appetite for the kind of volatility that Bitcoin has. If you have the appetite, yes, you will make. See, okay, in trading, you must remember, for example, okay, let me talk about this only. Let me say that my trading strategy is I will buy whenever this comes down to 660, whatever, and I will sell whenever it goes to 1800. Great strategy. In the last 7 years, I could have done it 2 or 3 times, whatever. Right? But when you are trading, you need to have a stop loss, which is not more than 1% of your capital that you're risking. So unless you're willing, and if you make 10 trades like that without making any money, and on each trade you keep losing 1%, at the end of the 10 trades you would have lost 10%. Now after that, if you are still okay, I mean, great, you will 100% end up making money. You'll 100% end up making money. But the thing is,
Another question, Malu.
Sorry?
Another question.
Yeah.
See, what all this is all well, how the market goes, what goes up, what goes down, kya risk, all that is one thing. Can you give a little bit of insight when you're looking for a share to buy? What are you looking at? Where is the PE? What should one do? I mean, what is a person looking at if you're as an investor? When you want to pick up a shares, one doesn't have to read all the economic times and all the papers.
No.
What should be the strategy for a person? What you're saying is nice as a market. Can you give some fun on that? What is this PE ratio, kitna value and all that? Can you explain one of them?
Okay, sure. Actually speaking, what should one look at? Firstly, you need to identify industries that could do well, say, if you have a longer horizon over, for example, now at the moment, the industries that seem like they're going to disrupt things are electric vehicles and green power. Okay, these are two. So then you need to say, suppose I've identified an industry like that. Now you need to then identify see, one of the reasons why shares like Tata Chemicals have gone up through the roof is because it seems they're going to get into lithium batteries. Now, if I pull out Tata Chemicals here, one second. Tata Chemicals here. Okay. Right. If you see the high low over the last year, it's 795 to 22. If you see the stock P, it's 35.8, much lower than Hindustan Lever, but 25.8. The dividend yield is 1.44, more than Hindustan Lever. But if you look at these ratios, return on capital employed, 7, return on equity, as a rule, I would not really want to get into this. If you look at their sales growth also, I don't think it's going to be very high. But you look at what has happened to the share price just because they have announced that they are probably getting into lithium batteries. This is over the year. If you bought it in November, you would have got it at what, 500? Sorry, 300. Bought in November, you would have got it at 300. If you now buy it at this price, personally, I won't do it. But you could do it and still make money. But just looking at these figures, your market cap, see, one of the basic things, don't look at a company where these figures 15, 15, 15 are not there. But let me tell you, there are some fantastic companies which don't have that 15, 15, 15. But then that is the whole thing about rules, that you know when to ignore the rule and when to follow the thing. As a normal thing, a stock P of anything over 25 is considered high. Is considered high. It does not mean it will not go higher. In the case of Hindustan Lever, you saw it was 70. But if you take, say, Infosys, I think it is still around, a share like Infosys is still around, I think, 27 or something. No, it's gone to 32. Okay. So look at the share like Infosys. Now, this would definitely, the ROC is 32, this is 25. This is definitely, and the sales growth are definitely high. This would be worth taking a chance on. But whether you want to do it on 40, see, the thing is, you must have a lot of patience. This share, in the last year, it had come down to 604. I'm not saying you bought at 604, but 700, 800, anywhere you bought it, you would have made a decent amount of money in the last year. So you should have a list of shares like this, which are fundamentally very sound. Like someone once told me, he says, look around you. When things go bust, if you think HDFC Bank has closed down, that means Armageddon is basically here. So a company like HDFC Bank, see, that is what we not discussed, because at the end of the day, when we talk about value, even shares, when Armageddon comes, shares are going to be worth zero. All shares. See, why do you think they fall like a ton of bricks whenever a black swan event happens? Because people are just getting out of the shares at any price they can get. That is why they fall like a ton of bricks. And please, there are people who make money when the markets fall, the bears actually, and they look for opportunities, because the markets fall much faster than they rise. Always, you will see. Because actually, at the end of the day, BK, if you ask me, what is the value of the share? When Armageddon comes, the value of the share is zero.
On the ratio analysis, is the dividend yield on the current price or is it on the face value?
It is dividend yield is calculated on the current price on 14. If you bought Infosys today at 14.10, whatever dividend you're paying over the year, you would still make a return of 1.24 on whatever money you spend. Say I bought one share, I would still make 1.24 rupees on that share.
Is that on the face value?
For that year.
Dividend yield is talking is on the current price, or this
on the current price, yeah.
You're sure of that, is it?
But how come the current price is changing all the time?
Yeah, so this thing is going to be refreshed tomorrow. If you look at it, it's going to be different.
So dividend is not paid on the face value.
Sorry,
I thought dividend was paid on the face value.
No. Whatever is the dividend is going to be paid on the face value.
Yes.
But whatever amount of dividend that you get, if I calculate the return on a price of 1,410, my dividend yield would be 1.24%.
Yeah, okay, fine. That makes sense. I was just having a little doubt there.
See, whatever dividend they are paying on the face value, or they are paying per share.
Chalo guys, I got to leave. Thanks a lot,
Mallu, one question. Mallu, I got a question. If the company's book value is higher than the current value, current market price, is it good or bad? Book value is higher.
See,
the
reason why the book value is higher than the current market value is because there is for some reason, the market does not believe the book value.
I see. Okay.
See, book value is basically tomorrow if this company went bankrupt and went shut, each shareholder would still get whatever is the book value when they liquidated the assets.
Okay.
So if tomorrow Infosys went, belly up and shut down, as a shareholder, I would not get whatever the current price, but I would still get 168 rupees on whatever shares I held.
I see.
Well, if the book value is higher than the current market price, let me think of a company where that is,
You check Great Eastern Shipping.
It basically means that
DE
the
Shipping.
company market has no faith in that company.
Okay, okay. Chandru's company, ex-company.
Yeah, it is quite possible. See, okay, take a company like ONGC also, no? एक minute. Let's take a company like ONGC. Now, current price is 103. The
Yeah,
book value
yeah,
is
yeah.
167.
Yeah.
P is 13, and the dividend yield is pretty decent. But the reason why the market does not believe in this company is because it's a government company. And most people have burned most people in India have burned their fingers by investing in PSUs.
Yeah.
PSUs are very cheap if you look at it from the point of view of value.
SCI अच्छा था.
Sorry?
SCI अच्छा था.
SCI.
हाँ.
Let's have a look at SCI. I've never looked at that, but let's have a look at it.
No, I did both SCI and Great Eastern.
Yeah. A book value is
Yeah.
170, current price of 110. So, but your dividend yield is not. SCI are not paying any dividends.
No, but on the market it went, see the fluctuation, 135 and...
No, so the market is not looking at it very favorably. Its market cap is only 5135 crores. Or, okay, Great Eastern. Yeah. Even here, the book value is 505. See, no one believes that. See, what is the value of a ship? Because this includes all the value of the assets, etc.
Shipping,
But
nobody.
here, the dividend yield is quite decent. It's not bad. It's at least near a savings bank dividend yield.
Yeah.
So one should be looking for a higher PE ratio or a lower PE ratio. What should be when you want to pick up a stock?
Actually, at the end of the day, if you ask me, BK, look for higher PE ratios because the company, because the market is believing in that company. Take a company like Tesla. Every time I talk to Sanjay, his only thing is, yeah, I want to sell all my money and short Tesla. Because no one believes that Tesla can be valued that high. It's a graveyard of short sellers. It's been a graveyard of short sellers. I believe in high PE. If your stock PE is
High means
less,
what value?
it generally means that the market has no faith in that company or no. But if you look at it from the value point of view, yes.
When you say
It
high,
has value in that
what is the
company.
meaning of high?
But
How much is 5, 10, 15, 20? What is considered to be high PE ratio?
what is considered to be a high P? Okay, let me.
You said no, it should be high.
No. Let me pull
So
out
what is high?
Avenue Supermart, or let me pull out even the Avenue Supermarts. Stock P is 193. Dividend yield is 0.
Mallu, you try Adani Green. Adani Green.
Adani Green is another. See, okay. When you're investing, the first thing you look at is the management.
Correct.
Okay. You look at the management. I won't
620.
invest 620. Your P is 620. And this price will go up if you look at the price, look at the chart of the price. The price is going up every day. The price is going up every day. Look at the price. So that is why price and value are two. But you get in this share, you may still get out with money. But after 10 years, believe me, you will be losing money on this share. If you take a period of 10 years, if you take a longer period, you'll be losing money on this share. The management, firstly, I don't believe the management. Management is there as long as the government is there. Anyway, that's personal opinions.
Yeah,
I
those are
don't
different
invest in
matters.
Adani Group companies.
But
Okay.
Adani Port was good. Adani Gas, Total Gas, both were.
Okay, have a look. See, this is a free site. You guys can play Adani Ports.
Port and Economic Zone.
The Adani Ports is much better. It's got P 37.3. Dividend yield is also there. It's closer to the high. It could make you money, but this at the end of the day, it's manipulation, and fine, it could make you money. But if you are looking for value, this is not the place. Look at Adani Total Gas 286p. Dividend yield is 0.02.
Okay, Mallu, another question, please.
Yeah.
There is this conflict between churning your stocks and ye kharido, ye becho, wo becho. And the other one is like that Hero Honda, buy it, shut it and forget it. So is it better to buy good blue chips? I mean, besides people like us who can't trade actively like you can, like you said, your father's stock portfolio, if you want to just leave it for the long term,
No,
isn't it better to just buy?
no. PK, I have a confession to make. I left it because it was not mine. My mother.
No, I agree. The reason why you left it is different. But I
I
mean,
just
end of
left
the
it.
year, end of this period, the results shown by them has outstripped any other form of growth. So
Right.
is it better to go cherry pick good stocks and then put your feet up and open a single malt, or does one have to carry on? Arey, do upar gaya, paanch niche gaya.
No,
So is that a better?
BK, you need to monitor your portfolio regularly because what is going, especially nowadays, a lot of disruption is happening. You talked about Hero MotoCorp, fantastic company. If I pull it out, it's got a great dividend yield also. It's not a bad dividend yield. So how come? Sorry. Yeah, it's a fantastic company. Dividend yield is not bad. It's saving even at this price, and the stock P is not very high if you see. And you see all these ratios, 27, they're all above 15, so they fit my bill. But the problem that is going to happen is electric vehicles. Is Hero Moto how well they're going to move into electric vehicles? I really don't know. So there's a lot of disruption happening. Or for example, a company like BPCL, even when oil, very slowly, maybe Adani, the guys who are investing in Adani Green may actually be laughing at the end of 10 years. We don't know. Because it's a disruption is going to happen. But so you cannot buy, you say same thing as companies in hydrogen or in lithium batteries. Maybe those are the companies to look at. They're a company of, so you can't really nowadays buy a stock and forget it, even if it's a Hindustan Lever, where people need to buy soap and noodles and whatever else. But still, I would not buy it and forget it because there may be a time when that stock may start getting devalued. Its P may start dropping. So, and if I keep holding it, then it's going to be destroy my wealth rather than make wealth for me.
Why
Mr.
would you
Malhotra,
say Hindustan Lever stock would fall? I mean, besides Ramdev taking over making noodles, this is the core business of consumer stuff. Noodles, people will eat noodles. Maybe they are not going into solar, but why would a basic FFCG go down?
Why would a basic? No, see what you're paying. See, when you say PE and all, things like PE and all, you're paying for future growth. That is the whole idea, or that is what the PE is trying to tell you. That you're paying today so much, so because you're thinking that it's going to grow well. My earnings are going to grow. I'm going to get higher dividends and earnings are going to grow. So what happens is the price may come down because people are assigning a lower PE to it. See, you take this Hindustan Lever back. Today, the PE being assigned to it is, say, 73.8. Tomorrow, if someone starts assigning a 50 PE to it, for whatever reason, the price is bound to fall. Or it's not going to rise as rapidly as, as rapidly as you would want it to rise. I'm not saying the company will go bankrupt. I'm not saying that it'll go bust. It may not give you the same returns that, say, a Tesla would give you, or even a Tata Power would give you, because they are getting into, say, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, etc. Or they're getting into solar energy and stuff like that.
तो मल्होत्रा साहब थोड़ा ऐसा कर लो, जितने
बोलो।
लोग हैं ये इसमें अभी है, इसमें थोड़ा ज्ञान ज्यादा दे, यानी कि please suggest some names, suggest, then leave it to the others to study and do what you want. Suggest some names where we should look at, say, the long-term type or invest, and something where the Sata Bazaar works. Some names, what you think are worth it.
There's
Yes.
there are a couple of questions also here. I don't know whether Rajesh, you can have a look in the chat.
One sec. Let me go back to the chat.
Chat में तो हाँ for
एक
beginners.
minute, chat. Where is the chat? Shop से more. हाँ, more में होगा ना chat. Here more. हाँ, chat. There are 5 questions here. Oh, shit.
Nick, some of you answered already. I think first
Ek
was asked
minute.
and BK answered that.
Oh, yaar. Why? Shit.
Need help?
Arey yaar. Yeah, it's one sec. Let me see.
No problem. The first question was, I'll just read it out.
In
Should
India,
in India, do we have any liquid instruments to invest in real estate, such as REITs in the
Yeah.
USA?
REITs, there are quite a few REITs in India.
Actually, there are quite a few. Okay.
Yeah, REITs are exchange traded where you are investing in real estate, but you
They
get
just want to
tied
go under
down.
with ISSF, what IFFSC, क्या था वो उसके अंदर?
Your
infrastructure leasing.
the problem is you get tied down to whatever is should Bitcoin. Yeah, are you only talking about Bitcoin?
Yeah, Bitcoin or any other, the
Oh.
crypto dollars also, anything.
Yeah,
That
I
you
mean
meant,
the
yeah,
same.
crypto dollar
Bitcoin is
cards.
the same. Bitcoin is the most prominent, but that Ethereum and all, they fall into the same same category. And yeah. So for beginners, should we just invest in Nifty ETF rather than betting? This is something I want to cover. Actually, this is one of the safest things to do, especially in India. But please keep in mind that index ETFs in Japan did not give negative returns between 1990 and 2020 actually, negative returns for 30 years. But Japan, actually I want to talk more about Japan and US and how the US market is becoming more and more like the Japanese market with so much debt.
Module 2.
Module 2. Actually, like I said, I can go on and on about this. It's what
That we believe you.
So, yeah, to answer this, Nifty ETF is a great idea.
Okay.
And you should invest in Nifty ETF as a beginner. But like I said, you'll get 10 to 15% returns. Be happy with that. If you get 10 to 15, you may get lower on the ETFs. But yes, you will not lose money. And the best time to invest in ETFs is when the market is fallen, not when the market is so high.
Okay.
Vallu, how about giving 10 stocks?
10 stocks. Should
Time
I
to
make
sell now or what?
No, I can tell you some now. One sec. Let me take over the list I'm looking at. See, again, not at this, not maybe at the price. Keep a watch. Don't run after the price. You will get lower prices. Don't buy on the day. Yesterday was a good day to buy, by the way. But I was expecting the problem when the market falls like that, we expect that it will fall further. I was expecting a further fall. But yes, it may come. It may still come. Okay. So one is whatever is going to benefit from electric vehicles. One of the stocks are, I've already told you 2 names, Tata Power, Tata Chemicals, NTPC. These are all going to benefit from electric vehicles because they're setting up, charging infrastructure, etc., etc.
NTPC is PSU.
NTPC is a PSU. It's got a good dividend yield has fallen now, but it had a good dividend yield last. NTPC is something I've been recommending from 83, 84, but right, NTPC is today 178, 83. See, even now, it's got a decent dividend yield. This yield was much higher. And if you look at the P, but don't see from price of 106, it may go to 130, 135, 140. Don't expect miracles from this. But you will get 20-30% return. Besides whatever dividend you get within a year. But yeah, try and buy it as close to between 93 and say 102 possible.
Okay, sir.
But the problem may be that when it's falling, you normally think it's going to fall further. Don't wait for that. Just buy it.
What went wrong with Tata Motors?
Tata Motors is a
Electric vehicle.
Yeah, it is. See, Tata Motors is probably
They bought
one of
Jaguar.
the beneficiaries of electric vehicles. Tata Motors and even Mahindra and Mahindra. And surprisingly, there's a company called Greaves Cotton, which is, see, you look at Tata Motors, bad actually. They got too much debt. Of course, they are promising.
All that
See,
is
if you get this Tata Motors around 230, 250, maybe it may be worth it.
Which one? Tata Motors 300 something, no?
305 at the moment.
Oh.
But see, you don't see what has happened. It is the rise has come from November, December. You were getting it for 160, 170 in November. So, I mean, see, stocks go through something which is known as accumulation and distribution. Accumulation was when it was here. You see how many months it was getting accumulated. Now, it will remain like this, or it may even go up to 350, 370, 380. But that will be someone distributing the stock. So you need to be careful. I mean, I'm not saying you will not make money or this may not, but I find it difficult to think that this will double for me. If they actually go in for electric vehicles, yes, maybe.
No, they have already got electric vehicle in the market.
They already have, yes, true. But
I think they ran into some trouble with Delhi admin.
Yeah, but that is short term. That is noise, actually.
Rajesh, sorry to interrupt. I'll be leaving now. Got something to attend.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've taken.
No, you please carry on in case there is some other thing happening. I'll catch up with you.
No.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Yeah, bye, guys. I hope it was useful. I don't know.
और नाम बोलते जाओ.
7 more.
Yeah. Right. 7 more. Yeah, you already talked about Crompton Greaves. No,
Crompton Greaves or Greaves Cotton?
No, Greaves Cotton. Sorry. Have a look at it. Because I believe they are getting into electrical scooters or two-wheelers. Just let me have a look at Crompton Greaves. I've been wanting to look at this. No, Greaves Cotton, sorry.
Crompton Greaves तो पंप बनाते हैं मेरे ख्याल से.
हाँ.
Greaves Cotton engine बनाते हैं ना.
See, they are making engines, right? So that is why they are getting into electrical vehicles. But if you see stock P, because they're not making any earning, dividend yield is 0. Although there's 18.2, 13.9, not bad. But and high low is also pretty reasonable, 158.62. This, if it falls, maybe not at this price. Not at this price. Aditya Birla Fashion. Around between 152 and 175. It had gone up to, again a company which had gone up to Aditya Birla Fashion. Aditya. Fashion and retail. Here. See, actually the problem is the valuation, 187. But this is now been touted as a good buy. But just looking at these figures, I would hesitate to buy at 187.
I don't think I'll touch anything to do with Aditya Birla.
Have anything to do with
Aditya Birla.
Aditya Birla? Okay.
सबसे बड़ा चोर वो है.
I mean, yes. See, management. Actually, the first thing you need to look at is the management. And that is where the problems mainly lie.
What is your call on Western India shipyard?
That is shut down here. I've lost a lot of money on that.
Courtesy Diwakar ji.
Courtesy Diwakar.
Jairaj going public? Huh?
कौन मैं?
Jairaj going public?
No,
Jairaj.
no,
They tried sometime, no?
no.
Earlier.
I don't think they.
Pradeep Korea is going public, huh? Seven Island Shipping.
Yeah, 7 Island.
Okay, he's going public. Really?
Yeah.
7 Island.
Okay.
But will it be worth buying 7 Island? One public IPO.
Okay. Can I tell you some other companies in one sec?
Yes, बोलो बोलो बहुत जो लिखित में जाते हैं.
This HDFC Life,
हाँ.
if it is coming down though,
क्या value?
and HDFC Life, there is a company called, the management is bad. That is Garware Technical Fibers.
That is a technical fiber different from wall ropes?
No, Wall Ropes has been renamed as Technical Fibers.
Okay.
See, the stock P is 38.4, but if you see this, but this is a management I don't trust, but this could do well in the long run. And there's a company called GMM
Fodler.
Fodler.
That is an Vittal
See, this
Udyog
has got a
Nagar.
high P and 428. This was 1 month back, it was available at 3,500. I was tempted and I did not buy.
GMM Fodler is a
Yeah.
company
You
which
see,
makes
in Jan and Feb, it was available at 3,500. I was very, very tempted at that point. I did not buy. Even 4,200 actually is not bad, but if you are getting it around 3,500, maybe a better deal. Maybe a better deal. And see, the life insurance, too many companies, but SBI Life could give you decent returns.
what price to look at?
See, all these shares, you wait for period when the market falls, actually. Don't buy right away. One sec. And actually, Hero Motor is on my list, but I am not sure whether it'll go, what they're going to do.
They will do electric vehicle for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, if they get into electric, actually, Hero Motor is a great company to buy.
What about TVS?
TVS, not at this price, actually.
थोड़ा inflated है.
See, the P is quite high, the dividend yield is quite low, and it could do well.
Yeah, dividend yield low, मतलब their funda is very simple.
584. Okay, HDFC Bank.
बस
actually.
मल्लू there is
If you-
some company.
Sorry,
एक अमरा राजा बैटरी है उसके बारे में बता. बैटरी.
I just sold Amara Raja battery. I had a few shares. I just got out of it. It is supposed to get into electric.
Are they going to lithium?
Lithium batteries. But let me tell you, the management and they had a joint venture which they have actually scrapped, and they have got into a collaboration with IIT Madras for getting into this electric vehicle batteries. So I have got out of Amara Raja battery.
What
I
about
would-
Excite?
But this
I would prefer to buy. In fact, I have a order to buy Excite batteries at about 175 to 179. I have placed what is called a standing order to buy this at 170 because these guys are also getting into lithium batteries.
But बहुत Excite 100 के नीचे चल रहा है मेरे ख्याल से.
Excite
हाँ,
183 at the moment.
183.
I placed an order at 170. See, I had bought this share. I got out at 208 and I want to get in again. I'm waiting for it to come to about 175, 170. I placed an order, in fact, for once. So if I get it, otherwise I'll have to chase the price. That is, if you see Amara Raja batteries, right? Stock P, yeah, looks okay, but see, they had a collaboration with someone which they have actually scrapped. I got out at about 750 from this. But I did not have many shares. I just had about 75 shares. So I wanted to trim down my portfolio, so I just got out of this. But I wouldn't buy it again. I would rather buy Excite. They are collaborating with a Swiss company, I think.
What about HBL? There is a company called Hyderabad Batteries, HBL.
Which one? Mahindra and Mahindra?
No, HBL. HBL.
HDL, oh, batteries.
HBL batteries.
Oh, HBL batteries. Oh, they are being promoted, HBL power systems. But if you look at their figures at the moment, not very encouraging. These are small cap stocks, and small cap you can really end up with lemons because they are not really, unless you know something, they know something about the management, other stuff. They are not really. See,
I'll
I'll
give you a rundown on it. He was the only battery manager who stole data from high-tech US, what is that, defense related, and got out of prison and came back to India. That's an inside info. That is my experience working when I was in Hyderabad. So do a lot of inspection work at HBL.
What they did, could you just repeat that?
Generally, if you do any of these industrial espionage in US, you get be locked up for life.
Ah, okay.
He's one guy who got out from there and came to India. He got caught, but he fought his way out of the jail.
Okay.
And he came out with some deadly technology. But this is an old story, more than 20 years.
No.
Okay, guys, I'm going to make a move.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Chandu. Thanks, Mallu.
I hope it was worth missing your call. I don't know.
Yes.
But
As long as I make more money over
Very good information, boss.
anytime